All right, Larry Kruger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little San Francisco Giants video. A little off-season primer. Who stays, who goes? But first, let's mention Pig and a Pickle, the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out in Embryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Giants and the off-season ahead. The playoffs begin today, and the Giants are at home like everybody else, sitting on the couch. Well, let's talk a little bit about them. It sounds like Farhan Zaidi is coming back as the general manager, and Gabe Kapler obviously has moved on, and the Giants are looking for a manager. The latest is the Padres want to keep Bob Melvin. I would make Ron Wotus the manager. I heard somebody say it's like hiring Jim Tom Sula. Why? Why's that? I'd love to know. Ron Wotus is thoroughly qualified. He knows this regime. He knows Farhan. He knows the Giants' analytic bend, and yet he's the tie to 3 championships. He's respected by everybody, the fans, the media, the players. This team under Gabe Kapler didn't work hard. They rarely took batting practice on the field. They rarely drilled like they used to drill when Bochy was the manager. Ron Wotus will bring back that work ethic because that's who he is. Ronnie works. He deserves this job. He should get this job. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't think there's another candidate that's anywhere close to Ron Wotus as a managerial candidate. So I'll lay that down right there, and you can agree or disagree. And I'd love to see your comments in the chat. But let's talk about the Giants for a second. They finished 79-83. So it was not only not a playoff season, they finished 4th in the division. The only team that they beat out were the Colorado Rockies. They finished 21 games behind the Los Angeles Dodgers in the National League West. They finished 5 games behind the 3rd wild card spot in the National League wild card race. So the Giants have a lot to work on. They can't hit a lick. Their defense was atrocious. They couldn't win on the road. But let's go through it. The Giants were really good at home. They went 45-36 at home. They went 34-47 on the road. Really bad road record. They got outscored by 45 runs on the year. They scored 674, which was the lowest in the entire division. And yet they allowed 719, which was the highest, or the second highest, I should say the third highest in the division. So the Rockies allowed more, the Diamondbacks allowed more, and actually the second highest. And then the Giants were third as far as runs allowed. But as far as runs scored, dead last. In fact, 674, who scored less than that in the National League? Pirates scored 692. The Marlins scored 666. So that's it. Giants were the second lowest scoring team in the National League. So that's how it all panned out at the end of the year. Let's take a look at the expanded standings and how the Giants did as far as, in the different ways you break it down. They were 30-35 in the daytime. They were roughly 500 at night, 49-48 at night. They actually might not have even been as good as they were because they were 25-19 in one-run games, and they went 11-5 in extra innings, where the rules are kind of bastardized to have a runner on second base, something I've never really enjoyed or endorsed. And then by division, the Giants went 13-18 against the NL East. They went 20-13 against the NL Central, owned the Central. And they went 500 in the division, 26-26. They went 20-26 in the interleague. They went 49-63 against right-handed pitching. They went 30-20 against left-handed pitching. So they got crushed by right-handed pitching. So, and they stood up against lefties, 30-20. That's pretty good considering how they finished on the year. All right, let's talk a little bit about what they've got going in the offseason. Here are their free agents going into the offseason. Jock Peterson, Brandon Crawford, Alex Wood, Jake Junis, Perez, the catcher, Brebbia, the reliever, and Scott Alexander, the reliever. Of those guys, I think the only guy that I would consider bringing back Peterson, but not at $20 million a year. Try cutting that in half. He's a local guy. He still has some power. He's not an embarrassment. So Crawford, I think, is going to move on. Wood is dying to leave. Just he's packed up and gone. I don't think the Giants could get him back if they wanted him back. Perez, it doesn't matter. And then it really just comes down to Junis, Brebbia, and Alexander. And it doesn't really matter. None of those guys move the needle. None of those guys put butts in the seats. Brebbia is a decent reliever who can be an opener. Junis is a nice little long man out of the pen, spot starter. Alexander, decent reliever. I guess you could bring all three of those guys back. But Crawford's moving on. Wood's moving on for sure. The other guy, and Perez is moving on. Junis, Brebbia, Alexander, and Peterson may come back. None of them are coming back for any big money deal. That's for sure. As far as arbitration eligible guys, Yaz, J.D. Davis, Austin Slater, Tyro Estrada, Wade, and Rogers. And that's Tyler Rogers. So I would say of that group, I would non-tender Yaz and Slater, not because they're bad, just because it's time for new faces in the outfield. It's time to either go young in the outfield or get some new blood out there. I'd bring back J.D. Davis. He's from Elk Grove. He can play first. He can play third. He had a nice first half. I would obviously try to re-sign Estrada, the Willie Mack Award winner, and Wade. Wade's coming off a very nice year, and Rogers. So bye-bye Yaz, bye-bye Slater. Welcome back J.D. Davis, Estrada, Wade Jr., and Rogers. The team option on Cobb, it's a big number probably, for 2024. He had a really good year physically. He broke down at the end of the year. I guess I would have to talk to my trainer about his projection on Cobb's physical for 2024. I'm open-minded on Cobb. But, is he open-minded on coming back here? I don't know. The Giants have the option, so it's their option. And it's reasonable based on what he did this year. That's still a TBD. Right now, I'd lean towards exercising the option and bringing him back. As far as Conforto, Minaya, and Stripling, I expect all three of those guys. I'd love Stripling to opt out, but there's no chance in hell that he will. So he's coming back. I'd love for Minaya to opt in, but I don't think there's any chance that he will. So you got, two guys there with options. Minaya you want back, Stripling you don't. Stripling's going to opt in, Manaya's going to opt out. So that's a double loser. Conforto, I really believe, is going to opt out as well, because I don't think he probably enjoyed his stay here. And I think he could probably put up better numbers in a different yard. So that's what I'm looking at. I think ultimately Minaya and Conforto opt out, Stripling opts in, and they're forced to pay Stripling. Now, Farhan did say at the end of the year that the emphasis this offseason will be on improving their defense. But he said that last year, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. So he also said last year he wanted to get more athletic, but he also said that last year and didn't do much about it. So does it even matter what Farhan says at this point? He just talks, and there's no accountability at all. As far as Marco Luciano and Tyler Fitzgerald, those are guys that got to be part of the equation this next year. Those guys will add to getting younger and more athletic, for sure. So I have them penciled in with roster spots for sure for the year ahead. Then the other big decision is which prospects do you put on the 40-man roster and which do you expose to the Rule 5 draft this winter? And I would say the guys that are no-brainers that are going to be put on the 40-man would be Grant McCray, and Averson Arteaga. Arteaga is probably the Giants' best defensive shortstop in the organization, and McCray is a very athletic outfielder who's making his way through the system. Those are the no doubters. The rest of them have to be investigated. Eric Miller had a very good year in the minor leagues. I would definitely keep him. Kai Wei Teng, who came over from the Twins in the trade for Sam Dyson years ago. People forget Sam Dyson, but that was the deal that brought Tang to the Giants. I'd definitely bring back Tang. He's got great stuff. Swiney, the lefty from NC State, I'd bring him back for sure. I like Logan Wyatt as a high average first baseman. The rest of the guys, Will Wilson, I don't know. I'm not sure about Will Wilson. Nick Avila, Brett Auerbach, Victor Barracoto, Jimmy Glowinky. Those guys may be minor league free agents, depending on how the roster pens out. But of these guys that can either be put on the 40-man or exposed to the Rule 5 draft, I'm putting Grant McCray, Averson Arteaga, Logan Wyatt, Eric Miller, Nick Swiney, Kai Wei Tang, and Eric Miller on the 40-man for sure. Will Wilson's borderline. So that's it right there. Those are the decisions that have to be made, basically, right there. On your free agents, on your arbitration eligible guys, on your options, on your opt-ins, opt-outs, and on your Rule 5 draft guys. Ultimately, what it really comes down to is the Giants got to get more powerful and better speed. I would make a big play if I could for the polar bear, because I think he would put butts in the seats. I really do. I think he'd be a fantastic first baseman despite his low average. I think he would be a guy that would really people would love to see him parking home runs. That's a guy that I would go after. If I couldn't get him, I'd go after Reese Hoskins, who went to Jesuit High School, went to Sac State. Probably coming back to Northern California would be attractive to Hoskins. He is coming off an ACL. I would have to take a look at that knee and find out if he's healthy or not, but that's a guy I'm interested in. I'm steering clear of Shohei Ohtani because there's too many unknowns. You're going to have to pay him as a two-way, one-of-a-kind kind of a player, and you don't know about his future on the mound. I would be interested in Mike Trout, and I would even be willing to take Anthony Rendon off their hands and his contract to get Trout for a lesser haul. I'm looking to promote guys like Kyle Harrison and Carson Whisenhunt into my rotation. There's a number of young players that the Giants, I think, are going to be leaning on from within their system. They don't need to go sign a bunch of free agents, a bunch of veterans, but they need some headliners. So there you go. There's my plan for the Giants. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments in the bottom there. We'd love to hear what you have to say. It's going to be a very pivotal offseason for Farhan Zaidi if he remains the general manager. And I think it starts with hiring Ron Wotus as the manager and going from there. Hope you enjoyed the Giant video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to all you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.